What's up, Ray?
Hello, Stephen.
How are you?
Is that weird? Like, do people call you Stephen Ray, like Steven? Like,
I get a decent amount of both. Mostly it's Steve, but I kind of fuck everybody up because I introduce myself as Stephen Ray. I've done that forever. I don't know why.
That's the part that I just realized makes me feel weird because I know you as Stephen Ray, but when I talk to you, it's Steve. Right. And I feel like, and then I just said Steven, and then it felt so weird. Like I was your mom
I liked it.
Calling you.
It felt good.
Oh, all right.
But people ask that a lot. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, I'm not. There's some people that get bent out of shape when you call them like the wrong variation of their name. I mean,
oh yeah,
man, I just don't care. Like,
I am in the same boat. I could care less. Like, but not to mention, it's like my name is Ray. It's the opposite for me. People try to add things to
Raymond.
Like, it's not Raymond, it's not Ronaldo, it's just Ray. I'm just born Ray. Like,
hey, man,
sorry to let you down.
That's the name we share.
I'm just saying, it's like I always let people down because they think it's fancier than it actually is. So,
well, hey, before we get started, I wanted to put this at the beginning of the show. So thanks everybody to subscribing, listening, liking our episodes on Spotify, the podcast app, YouTube, and whatever other platform you're listening to. If you could do us a favor, I'm going to ask for two. The first is like our podcast. It's going to help us. Even if you just kind of like it, or you just know us, or you just want to be a good Samaritan and do us a favor, we'll do our best. You can do it on any of the platforms. You can, give us a rating or give us a like. And if you are on the podcast app, write us a review. Even if you're shitting on us, that's totally fine. Just give us something there. And see, that was awful to say. Give us something. Just give us something.
Give us something, baby.
Anyway, well, cool. Let's get into it, man. Hey, was there one of these topics you wanted to jump right into?
I think the one that jumps out at me is the wireframes one.
Let's do it.
Just because I feel like
I think you and I have a different perspective, or I don't know. I don't know if we have a different perspective. I think that we've our processes have given us kind of some different. I'm just going to say perspectives about wireframes. So I think
so. I don't
go ahead.
I don't know. I don't. I feel like I'm always the walking contradiction. Like, I'll say this one thing, and then later on the episode, I'll say like, well, yeah, but not like that.
Oh, that's your nickname.
I feel like I want to say that right now, right? Because I want to say I think wireframes are pointless.
Ooh,
I really do. But I understand why you need them sometimes.
Yeah.
And even with my team, what we do, we don't do wireframes. We do on-the-fly sketches with flows, right? And so instead of someone that's hired specifically to do wireframes and think through the interaction and the flow and everything, we do it in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And think through how we want everything to flow.
Yeah.
And sketch some stuff out real quick. So it's not that the process of coming up with knowing how the interaction is and the flow and all that it's very important, but I don't feel that it's important for a team to have dedicated people that specifically draw boxes. And I've literally had teams like that. I've inherited teams like that. I've had to like let people go that was their only function in the whole company, just because it's like I feel like it's so slow.
No, you're totally right. We're on the same page. I would never hire someone that only does wireframes. Now, if they are like they've got some really, if you do wireframes, you've got good research skills. That kind of goes into the bucket of like getting things to a point before you start actually doing any level of like conceptual design, right? But we do. I've always done the same. I sketch. We used to get those dot grid books, and we would make these like beautifully perfect sketches. I don't even do that anymore. It's like a shitty box on a piece of lined notebook paper. And then you take that into, you look at, that's your reference for starting to like build out the flow in whatever your tool is. Now, tell me this, once you have things sketched out, are you labeling it and all that on the piece of paper? Okay, so it's just a box, you have a conversation about it. Then what's your process? Do you take it into a tool?
It's not a box. So what we do, almost like everyone on the team has an iPad.
Oh, okay.
And we basically do a digital whiteboarding session.
Okay.
And detailed labels, no. Ideas and directions, yes.
That's kind of what I was saying.
I'll draw like not a box, like a little quick mock-up.
Yeah, and
like,
that's what I meant by a box,
here's
like
everything.
a square that represents
and
a screen.
then next to it, I'll be like, here's where we need to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But not like I'm telling you, here, this is the nav, this is home, this is the CTA, this is all that. I'm just kind of like,
we may be more similar
like
than we thought.
Layout.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's exactly, having, I've had a team of 50 people. I don't know that everybody knows that, but I'm usually like, that's for the more entry or junior level designers. I mean, if I'm giving them, any sort of coaching on like how to quickly figure out, what you're building. I mean, that's exactly what I would say. Draw your fucking square on the page, label it out, put a little, we'll do like a little arrow. This goes to this page or potentially this one, but they all basically just have an idea of what you're trying to accomplish on that page, not any details of like what the actual features are. But after that, what do you do? Do you take it? So then you have that paper. What's your next step?
Okay. So this is, it's like I don't know how to describe it. What our goal is, and the reason that I dislike wireframes is because I feel like a lot of our job when we build products or we do everything is presenting what we've come up with so that everyone can get buy-in, right?
Sure.
Because until we actually put something down, it's a concept, it's an idea. And I like to hurry up and get to the visuals, right?
Yeah.
Not because I like to make pretty pictures.
No,
but it's not because I like to get pretty pictures, because I feel like it helps tell the story and helps get buy-in with people that aren't creative.
Totally.
And it's really hard for someone to conceptualize a box. It's really hard for even a sketch.
Yeah.
But people will understand what a product looks like.
Right.
Right. And what it does is like that first round of visuals will probably look pretty sexy because we're really good. We're fast. You know?
Yeah.
Like we can put some stuff together that looks like a legit product like we could go to market with right now.
Totally. And it totally gets people excited, right? That you're presenting to. Yeah. They're like, we're almost done.
But we make it to a point where like, this is not the design.
Yeah.
What we're talking about right now is a story of how you get from here to here. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
When you see this, what do you think? You know what I mean? And like it starts the process.
I think you made an important point there that you are clearly articulating to who you're presenting to that this is not the design. So not to focus on it. Now, the reality is that it's always hard for clients not to kind of like go like, whoa, come back with some feedback. You're like, whoa, we're thinking like a different color. And you're like, you're absolutely right. We just want to focus on, this for the moment or whatever. I've always had that experience. In fact, even when we would do we would present wireframes. Now I will actually still go through the process. I'll walk through my process, but like to the point of like getting feedback on things that you don't want feedback on, we would literally have like black and white wireframes I'm pretty sure. And we've gotten feedback that's like, now we're going to change up this design a little bit, right? And you're like, man, no, I thought it was done. Like clearly
that's
we're
my
not
point.
giving. So, I agree with that. And I think that's smart.
There's a lot of assumption made for people outside of the design world. That
Totally.
They'll just get it and they'll understand. And I have learned to take the complete opposite approach, to just assume that no one has a fucking clue what it is we do and what it is we're trying to do. And so even with your point on the colors, what I'll do is say, this is not the design. Here is the answers that I'm trying to get from you guys today. I want to solve for this, and that's it. And the rest of it we'll figure out as we keep going. So it's like, don't worry about the color. Don't worry about the design. Don't worry about the words or the fonts. I'm trying to figure out, can you find this thing and do this action right here?
Right.
And like you make it very up front. This is what we're trying to solve for today, guys. And like, that's it. And don't freak out. Don't like worry about other stuff. Don't worry about the logo. Don't worry about the colors. Like, we're going to play with that stuff until until the cow comes home, or whatever that term is.
Yeah. No, I love that. And, especially, if your designers are able to rapidly come up with a good concept and not get caught up in the weeds of the look and feel. Because, what I was trying to do whenever we would create these wireframes was the point was for them to understand that we weren't at design yet, but it actually never really helped that much. Still, the topic came up and we would spend time on it. So I like your approach. I guess my thing would be, you've got, a pretty seasoned team of designers that just bang out awesome shit. I think when you have, my concern would be if you weren't able to quickly pump out a good design that gets a client totally excited, maybe there's value in making progress and being able to say like, hey, we've made, this is the progress we're making and here's what we're doing. And we're still working on the design. And I've had some success with that, getting them detached from, the UX and the IA versus like the actual design, visual design of it.
My approach with that though is I don't use that as a crutch. Even if we didn't have someone that could just bang it out super fast, I'd be like, let's download this UI kit and we're going to use that as a base.
Interesting.
And we'll use that as our wireframe kit so that it still has some visual.
Use it as a crutch. Jeez.
No. Man, I didn't mean it that way.
I'm just kidding. Dude.
More just like it's more of a. I don't let anything stop me from getting to the visuals because I've found that it really helps tell the story. It really helps get the answers that I need answered to move forward and keep things going.
Yeah, I like that. And in fact, I know this is kind of it's interesting. I mean, you're not the only person, well, obviously, but like, I've got some other good buds I've had some kind of deep conversations with about this. And, I also think maybe part of it is maybe not. Maybe I've just found success in having my team, go through and figure out these wireframes and figure out like the functionality before getting into design. And what I've also done is when we're able to put together a team, when we have the budget to have a team that can do things in parallel, I like to have a more visually focused designer kind of pumping out, some concepts around some of the, the features or the components and just the overall look and feel. That's worked pretty well too. But you basically, it's, I'm not saying it's one person, but it would essentially be one individual that goes and, they're taking it from what you sketched out on the iPad, and then they're looking at that and they're basically starting to build out a visually designed mock-up of that also represents kind of like the wireframe, right?
Yep. 100%. But a lot of times too, it's like we've done a good job of like coming up with our own like style guides and our own stuff. Cause like, especially if we're building our own products,
right?
Like we kind of have pieces to work with. You're not always working from zero. And so we've made it easy for people to, even like our new people, to jump in and make stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but like I said, even if we didn't, I'd figure out a way that we could, just so it's like,
well, man, there's a huge amount of value in being able to show a client something that is not only functional, because that's not what gets people super excited until you walk them through, and they're like, okay, we've kind of got this figured out, but still the level of value or the level of excitement you get from a client showing them that you've figured out the functionality, they don't realize the amount of time and effort that went into that part. That being kind of the hardest part is figuring out like the information architecture and the UX, and then, you put design on it. And that's what they get excited about. Right. It's like then,
Totally.
like you said, it feels like a finished product almost, or like a real product. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So, I mean, I think there's a huge amount of value in that and keeping that momentum. And also kind of part of it is just like representing this value that you add by just doing the design. I definitely think there's a huge amount of value there.
I think there's this emotional roller coaster, you know, that especially when you're doing client work, and it's like your job is to keep them on the high, right? And when they're when it's like we talked about with reviews and stuff. If they leave there and they're like, I don't know if this is working. I don't know if this is good. Even though, I mean, they keep saying they did a lot of work, but
Right.
just look like some gray boxes and some lines. Like, what the hell? You know, and so since it's this emotional roller coaster, it's like anything you can do to like make them go, damn,
Yeah.
that's good. I
I'm with
like
you.
this. You know, like is always going to help. Like it helps tell the story and it helps keep them emotionally involved where they're just like excited to keep moving forward and what you could do next. And like, you know, so I don't know. It's like, it's hard to be like, it's useless because I don't think wireframes are useless. I think having dedicated people and spending weeks and months planning out flows and wireframes and stuff like that, that's going to change once we actually start building things.
Right.
Like that, I feel like is time wasted. And
Yeah, there's definitely
I
a
hate
range
wasting
there.
time.
Yeah. How do you divvy up? So when you have you're walking through flows with your team, at least currently on your product team, you guys are you working on the same particular product or are you working on like different products? And like, I guess my question is, if you're working on the same product with the team, you go through the sketching exercise as a group, how do you divvy that work up? Do you, because if you're going straight into design, I guess you said you kind of have a design system, so they would both at least go roughly down the same direction and they would just work on different pieces.
Ish. This is actually, I don't want to like derail, but this is something actually that we were talking about. I've had teams before at other companies where we've had so many products and we would experiment with that. I feel like was a failure where we would dedicate, because I'm interested in your perspective on this because I know you deal with the same thing, but we would dedicate a designer for this product. Like, this is yours. You own this product. Right. And what would happen, at least with my team, is you kind of get, I don't know, you get bored.
Okay.
And you feel like, yeah, okay, we'll work on that again today and I'll add some more shit to that. And like, it almost becomes like a production job than it would be. And so with that learning, the way we work right now is we call it, like I call our team like we like floaters. Like, you know, like we float, we're a cloud that just kind of floats from project to project and back and forth. But we do it in a time sequence that's not like I'm constantly having to like
Context
switch back and
switch.
forth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like you'll spend a chunk of time over here working on this thing, and then you'll jump over here and spend a chunk of time
How much
working on
time
this thing.
do you think?
I mean, a minimum of a week since we do week sprints.
God, that's pretty quick.
But the thing is, what you get done in that week wouldn't be a product.
Right.
It'd be a piece of something.
Yeah.
Right? Like one little module inside of a product is the thing that you would do. Right? And then you'd work with the front end developers and the back end developers, and we'd all put it together. And the next sprint, you'd work on this other product, and you'd do this little piece of that thing.
Wow.
And sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes, like, we'll work on a product for months.
Right.
And like, that's just what you do. You know what I mean? Like when my team is small and we're dealing with like a lot of requests. And so we, for the moment anyway, no one's said they hated it yet. Because I feel like everything in design management is like, it's an experiment. And when the experiment fails, you switch and you do another thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's where we are right now. The focus teams from other things didn't work. Right now, we're kind of floating back and forth between things, and that's working. But as we add more people and more products and more things,
Yeah, that'll get
continue
interesting.
to work. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Each product will have to be on some similar sort of cadence at least to be able to like. So that's really interesting. I've actually never heard of that. Yeah, I guess that. So how do you combat?
So hold on. I have a reason though.
Okay.
I just want to explain it. There's like a reasoning behind it. So with the company I'm at now, like we have a platform, right? That every product that we build is connected to this single platform, and it can do different things. Mm-hmm. And the reason for jumping back and forth is, especially for the new people that come on board, is to learn all the things that this company can do.
Very interesting. Yeah.
And so it's not like you're just going to work on this thing and you're going to work on this forever. When you work on this, you work on that, and then you work on this other one. You've now seen that like our core of the company can do so many things,
and how they're
and
interconnected
hopefully
and all that.
They're connected, and you can do this with data, and you can do this with whatever, and hopefully that inspires new ideas of what we could do with the next product and the next product, versus like, I just don't want people to get bored and they're just jumping around back and forth. Like, that's not the purpose. The purpose is purely for what could be done with this. And also,
that's interesting.
Since our team's small, the safety side of it is like, let's say somebody got sick. Mm-hmm. Now the rest of the team is not like starting at zero and understands what they were working on. We've all kind of been together and learning all the things together. So anyway, I wanted to say that before you were like, that's stupid.
That's like the best, the best. Well, I mean, everything you explained was great. That like really made it, there's a lot of value in that part of it. The, making sure you've got like redundancy and knowledge, that's pretty cool. And it makes a lot of sense when you have a small team and you're all working on different components of a kind of overarching product. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So my, most of my experiences with engagements that would last kind of at a minimum, like 6 weeks, and then they could go on for like years. And what's really interesting the problem I have faced is that clients get really attached to particular designers. And then sometimes that designer, maybe they love the client, but like you said, they're like, I'm kind of tired of working on this. Like, I need some new challenges. And now I'm just like, there's never ending iteration on things, because that's just the reality of making something better or experimenting or whatever. And so, we'd have to basically plan for them to be able to switch projects. And on the 6 week project, there's no way I would switch somebody out. It's just short, pretty quick. I don't know what my what point it would be that I would swap a team member out. But it'd have to be probably 3 months at a minimum to even entertain that conversation, just because there's, it's not like we just had a bunch of people sitting around on the bench that could just drop in or whatever. So we would have to coordinate with other projects, when they were either ending, or somebody that, maybe was also in the same position and ready for something different. But yeah, what I always hate is the year long ones where, people get stuck. And part of the reason is because, some of these are pretty big engagements and they're experts. And what we started doing, and this, obviously there's some complexities, but what we started doing was basically creating this shadowing program where if somebody rolled off of a project and there was enough time and we felt like they had the skill set to replace a person, they would basically just join the team. We weren't billing for that person. They were shadowing, but all this would be after that we explained to the client that, hey, so-and-so, we're going to, roll them out. And more often than not, they weren't excited about it because they're like, this person is the one that knows everything. And so we're like, yep. And guess what? We're going to get this person up to speed, and you're essentially going to have 2 people working your product. I mean, we basically had to entice them with the fact that they were getting this extra person and they're going to learn it, but they're also going to be able to add value for in a period of time, free of charge, basically. And, So that's kind of what I've had to go through in terms of like, project duration. But
yours is harder to do what I'm talking about, obviously, since you're more client facing and that designer would be client facing. And
Right.
like you said, now that person starts to love that person and know that person. So that makes it way more difficult. Where on an internal team,
yeah,
it's like
client's going to see the same people. You've got the same people working on all the pieces,
or
right?
we are the client. Like it's our products that we're building, right? And so
Right.
it's more about internal learning than it is about, making the client happy, even though there's some of that. But I feel like a lot of times the client knows me, and so
Are you the primary face?
Because I'm in everything.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, I mean, we're all in there together. I feel like they know all of us, but then there's a bunch of meetings that happen that are with me. And then, then it like trickles down to the team and everything like that. And so there's definitely on the client services side, a lot more clients know me than the rest of the team.
Right.
Which is, I mean, that's fine. It's like,
you got a pretty face, man. You got to work it.
Yeah. They love these gray hairs.
Well, hey, dude, let's jump into something else. One of the things you told me about the other day was this little design hack for putting fonts together. What was that? It was like a site.
Fontjoy, is it fontjoy.com?
I think it is. That sounds right.
Fontjoy.com. Yeah.
That looks pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know how much I can definitely go down the rabbit hole of trying to pair together like, the perfect fonts. And because, you don't want to use, well, for you, you're not, you've got a design system, you're working on an overarching product, but when you're doing like a lot of projects or like little off projects or whatever, and you want something different, like, and you're trying not to use the same thing every time. I can definitely fall into the habit of like, oh, I'm going to use this one. Yeah, this one still looks good. This is a different client. They're not going to compete.
Well, it's two
against each
things.
other.
It's like the one that you always use and the one that everyone else in the world is using, right? Because you'll start seeing like everybody's using Montserrat or everybody's using Open Sans, and you're like, I just want to be different.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Yeah, this is pretty cool. So everyone should check out fontjoy.com, and that might. I mean, all you do is you just click the freaking generate button. And I don't know. I would the way I would use this is I would like take screenshots of ones that I like, because once you click generate, it's gone.
Well, it's cool too that you can actually they have this little tool. Yeah, the little filter icon. If you click it, it shows you like all of the fonts at once, and like just an A or just a letter, right? So you can be like, ooh, that style right there, I like that.
That's cool.
It's kind of fat. It's kind of like fixed width or whatever, and then you can kind of play with it. But like I feel like, especially if you're doing like web design and different things like that, like headers, subheading, body, like it's like constant over and over and over again, to where you're just like, ugh, what do I put in here? I want to look something cool.
Yeah.
I still wish this was cooler. Like I want to play with the sizing. I want to play with uppercase, lowercase. Like I want to play with like
Yeah, this
like,
definitely.
You always want more.
Of course. Do you? What are your thoughts on Lorem Ipsum?
I use ridiculous ones.
So you do use Lorem Ipsum,
obvious.
like you use dummy copy.
So this is what happened before. Actual Lorem Ipsum, I would put into things, and like you were talking about before, people would be like, I don't know what you're writing in here. Is this like Spanish? Is this whatever? Like people literally would be like, I think there's a mistake here. And so now what I use Cupcake Ipsum for everything.
Interesting.
And I'm like, if you see anything that has anything to do with sweets or cook or like donuts or whatever, that means it's copy that needs to be added that someone is going to need to write. That's not the design team. And so it's like I've gone like so extreme to make sure that it's obvious.
Yeah.
Like because Ipsum it feels too real.
Well, I mean,
and it's happened so many times.
I had one person like that kind of proclaimed they knew that language. They're like, "Oh yeah, this is that." I was like, "Cool." I don't know. We just copied it. But a long time ago, I quit using Lorem Ipsum, and the reason was because, there's a few things, but the reason I would put concepts together and not use Lorem Ipsum is because I want them to understand the intent of what that copy was. And so I'd write my own bullshit, and I would have to let them know, like, hey, this isn't well written, but the intent of what I think should go here, this is what it is. You can read it, and we need somebody to write copy, which is another thing that it seems like a lot of clients never think about, is who's going to write the copy. And they're like, make me a website. Right, cool, give me some copy. And in fact, we tried, I think pretty unsuccessfully, to start requiring copy before we would get into like the design phase, or at some point, maybe it was at the beginning, I can't remember. But I mean, it never worked. They would agree to it. They're like, oh, yeah, okay. And then the time comes where we need that. Like, what's the copy that goes on this page, as we're designing it? And they're like, yeah, either they would say, yeah, we need to get someone on that. And it would just turn into a thing where then the client felt like we were badgering them, and it just didn't make for like good. They didn't feel good about it. But then we wouldn't have that shit. And so, the best, solution for me, for quite a while has been like, take a stab. And some people like, I can just write some bullshit. It's hard for some people because you feel like you're actually going to, you will be scrutinized. Even if you're like, this isn't very good, like, yeah, this is not good. Like, yeah, I know. Like, I know it's not good. That's why you need to rewrite it and give me some real copy. But
that's what happens to me every single time I try to do that.
But does it not help?
Think, see, for me, it doesn't. That's why I don't do it anymore. Okay. It helps me understand what it is. And in my head, we're trying to give you a guideline, you, the client, a guideline of what type of copy would go good here. But what ends up happening is they're just like, well, I don't like that copy.
Turns into a conversation.
Well, that's great, because that's not what this was meant for. I would love for you to give me the copy that you would like to go in there, which is why, like, I'm so like in here. I'm like, a header copy needs to be here.
It's
a nice subheading goes here.
This is like the reverse of like your wireframe opinion. Like, now I'm like, do a version of it. And then, like, you can give me feedback on that, or you can change it or whatever, or you're like basically going wireframes with copy.
Well, but the difference though a little bit is it's maybe it's not different. It's but okay, so here's the big difference. I'm not a copywriter. My team is not a group of
I think you and I, that's one
copywriters.
of our differences, like where we have a difference in skill level. Like, you're definitely, I'm going to give you some props because I'm not shitting on you.
Oh, I thought you were about to be like, you are definitely not a copywriter because you fucking suck and can barely speak English.
No, I was going to say, you're definitely like you can do faster mockups than me for sure. But I think one of my skills is I can write decent copy. And so, that's what I'll do. And like, seriously, like, get that in front of the client, and it gives them a pretty good framework typically of what at least I think. And if they don't have strong opinions, or if they can't do better, then we'll run that shit through Grammarly, and it's going to be maybe in the first version or whatever. But
so many times I've done that and written a copy, and they've just launched it. And like, nobody cared about the copy. No one took time to review any of the words. It was just like, they were just looking at the pretty pictures and they liked how it looked, and they were like,
dude,
go.
That is a role. I've floated the idea of hiring specifically. We've called it a couple different things. There's a copywriter, or we've even talked about like a UX writer. It's just kind of, I think we call it that because it's somebody that was going to be on the design team, kind of, that can do, some UX, but also understands, can write basically. Because that nobody on the team wants to. Nobody feels qualified. Nobody honestly is. I don't know if I'd say that, but generally not. I've had a few people that are like pretty good writers, but the problem is most of them don't join the team thinking that they're going to be writing copy. And so that's, if I was to build a big team again, obviously you have to have a certain size and a certain amount of like, recurring clients and all that to make that valuable. Or, even on a product team, I probably wouldn't hire, a full-time person. I'd probably just, contract that. But regardless, that role, nobody wants to do it. The client doesn't want to do it. The designers don't want to do it. The developers surely don't want to do it. They're writing enough, documentation. That's a role I think would be amazing to see more of on design teams.
I agree. I've worked at places that definitely we had copywriting that was on the design team. I feel like what you said was perfect though. Like I feel like the most successful it's been for our team now and like in previous places is to just have a copywriter in your back pocket that does freelance.
Yeah.
That can just understand what it is you're going for, understand a vibe, understand like a voice, and then just be like, all right, cool. Give me a day. Let me knock it out. And like, been really lucky to work with some awesome people like that you're just like, hey, here's the mocks. They're really playful and they like want to have something that's more fun and very alive. And
yeah.
Like, oh, okay, got it. No worries.
Yeah.
Like, they don't need a lot of information to like pull off something amazing, and I feel like that's just like invaluable.
Oh, yeah, invaluable. I think that's the right word.
Invaluable person.
We're probably both idiots right now,
like,
but
yeah.
Like
it's like an amazing person to have in your back pocket.
Yeah, not unvaluable.
Everyone.
Invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I've had a couple of good copywriters too. This one guy, he just wrote copy that had character to it. Because, we also sometimes get copy from clients and you're like, dude, man, this is hard to even read while I'm designing. Like no customer is going to want to read this. But they'll give you so much explaining. You're like, I think you could do this in one line. Okay. And you kind of have to make that suggestion sometimes. And they're like, I just spent all this time writing it. But I had a copywriter that like, the one big thing for me with copy is the way that I write it is like I'm talking to you. I'm not just writing the words, description words on the page. I'm like, it's like, hey, man, thanks for coming to the. Now, I may not write it exactly like that, but maybe not far. It's like something that when you read it, you're like, I like these guys. Yeah, I feel like, I feel like these people are talking to me. This sounds like a cool group. I want to, because that makes an impact on the UX, right? It's like,
yep.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Looks good. The tone, that's an important part of it. And what's funny is that starts to like fall into like, this is where it starts to like overlap with like branding and identity, right? You start to like figure out what the tone is and how you want people to perceive you, which I think is, pretty interesting.
It goes back to even the font things too. It's like that tone and everything. It's
a good
like
point.
There's a right font for that voice, for that tone, for that like smart ass vibe or that like happy vibe or that very corporate, like stodgy vibe. You know? So I don't know.
I'm sure the corporate people they're like, we want a stodgy vibe.
Yeah. That's what they go for. Right? Well, but they don't come and they're like, well, we want to have like the coolest, happiest, chill vibe ever. Like they don't come with the.
Yeah, it's true. They're like, we want to look like $1 million.
Exactly. It's professional and expensive.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is stodgy.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, hey, one topic we were chatting about a little bit. You wanted to talk about the going from designer to manager?
Yeah. It's fucking hard.
It is hard.
For me.
I
don't know how it is for everybody.
Before we jump in, let me tell you what I think the general sentiment about that is. The general sentiment with I'm going to keep saying younger designers. I mean, like designers earlier in their career are that I want to move up the ladder, and they start their career. And sometimes they're doing like more production level work or whatever, and they're getting to try to design, and their skills may not be honed yet. And that's fine. There's this beginning period, and then they get to a point where they're just designing all the time. And they're crushing it. They're feeling good. They're getting promoted. They're getting raises. They're getting accolades because their shit looks good. And they're like, I want to keep moving up. Well, I mean, of course, there's like, at a certain point, there becomes a ceiling to what the value of just being able to do that is. And the way you start to break these ceilings, you start to take on responsibilities that take weight off of your management, essentially. So therefore you start taking on management responsibilities, and it sounds cool. And so that's where we get to. Everybody wants to. So I guess I made that a real long-winded explanation. My feeling is that everybody wants to move up the ladder, move into these roles. I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I feel. What do you think?
I'll just tell you what I thought when I was a young designer.
All right.
I told you, like, I've had some awesome fucking bosses that I love to this day. I think they're amazing. But even then, I would look at them and go, I could do what they're doing. Why am I getting paid shit? And they're having a good old time.
Yes,
and just kind of like chatting with everybody.
I'm glad you said that. That's
and
totally
probably
a feeling.
And like they just bought, a new motorcycle and they have like a bunch of money and stuff. And like I feel like I'm over here like slave driving and I could do what they're doing. Like it's maybe a chip on your shoulder kind of vibe, but that's what I felt.
I'm sure I had that at some position I've been in, because sometimes it's not true, but not always.
But I always had that thought in the back of my head. Mm-hmm. And so my approach to everything was like, fuck it, I'm just going to do that. And so I would quit and I just start my own company, start running my own thing. Or
that's a pretty baller move.
That was going to let me. I mean, what is it? If you can't work your way up, you just make your own ladder.
You just quit.
Whatever. Yeah, you just fucking quit and be homeless. It's easy. But no, I don't know. I dive into things like that. And the hard part for me going from designer to manager is letting go.
Yeah.
I am a designer, will always be a designer. I'm an artist. I want to create and make things. Yeah. And that will never change. And it is so hard to like have ideas running through your head, and then you just go, okay, you guys, y'all go do it. I'll be over.
I know what you mean.
Here, where you're just like, I want it to be awesome. I have these ideas. I could do that. This way we do this, and so I've kind of been in this like hybrid state for a long time, and I still am a little bit with my team, but we're growing so quickly that it's slowly making it to where I can't be a hybrid anymore.
Yeah.
But like I still dive in. Like I still mock things up. I still do whatever. If like somebody was sick or got out, like I'll just do it. Like I'm still in there. But there's so much, so many meetings.
Kind of like the dream, but yeah, now there's the meetings.
Now there's so many meetings. There's so many just like plannings. There's so many just like I've got to like come up with what are the tasks? Like, how are we going to get through this? What's the roadmap going to be? Like, there's so much other shit now.
And that kind of stuff that takes forever. And I don't know if you're like me, sometimes I don't realize the amount of time that's going to take. And it's like, if you could just focus on one thing a day, that's like Jack Dorsey's schedule is like Monday's email, Tuesday's working on product, Wednesday is this. I'm like, that sounds amazing. But so, when I started to make a big transition, I brought on, Ben Hernandez, and he was like my right hand, and he can make decisions. I went from, a couple of companies ago, went from hiring all juniors, couldn't make decisions, couldn't help me with anything. I was running the whole company with Anthony. Anthony ended up, doing some other things, and then I was running it by myself, and nobody could help me with shit. And I was like the art director. I was the project manager. I was everything, and it sucked. And so whenever we started the consulting company, I was like the first person I need to hire somebody that can immediately help me and take things off my plate at a like management, like near executive level, right? And but also do work, because there was only like two of us in the beginning, or three of us, and the other person was purely like doing like production work. So what I would do is I would estimate projects, and I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to dedicate myself 50% on that. And so, I'd plan out work for me and Ben, and like, man, I would just fuck Ben over like right and left, because I would get caught up in all these meetings, and then I would try to work at night, and I was like not doing it right. I mean, like not managing my time right. I had underestimated, like an idiot, or like somebody just that had never, dealt with this before at this level.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I had, but I guess I didn't learn my lesson. You're just overly ambitious sometimes. And then Ben, I'd be like, we would meet together and he would show me all his work. I'd be like, that looks great. And I was like, and then I felt like this shitty employee where I'm like telling Ben, I'm like, I'm a little behind. And I show him like, one screen or something. And he's like, then he would be like, yeah, let me just take a couple of those off your plate. And so I would end up loading him up with like, I don't know, 50 hours of work or more probably, until the point where I finally realized I was like, I need to start backing out of this. I need to start actually like, in order for us to scale and grow, I need to focus more on like the future of the company. We are starting to get more employees. I need to be able to manage them, all this stuff. And so there was a particular project where the client had come in and we met, and Ben and I are all excited, and it was actually a really cool project. And I don't know if we sketched it out or whatever, but we were just at a point where I had a very clear vision of the direction in my head. But Ben needed to take this on. And at this point I was like, I realized that he needed to, he was going to own this one, entirely, like the concept and all that. But I already had a vision in my head. So he goes and puts a lot of work into these concepts, and I trust him because he's a great designer. And then at the end of the week, he shows me what he has, and it looked great, but it was nothing like the vision I had in my head. And I had that feeling of like, I want to see my vision. I want to see what my vision looks like too. Not saying that's bad, we don't need to show it, but I really had that in my head. And I was like, well, no. This doesn't look bad. It looked great, in fact. I'm sure. So I just was like, okay, let's see what the client thinks. And if they're not happy with it, then we'll take a stab at like the direction I had in mind. The client loved it. And it was kind of at that point where I go back to our conversation about designing art versus designing for business outcomes. The client loved it. They got what they needed. There was no reason I needed to go do the vision I had. Now, did I? I kind of wanted to, but this wasn't for me. It was for the client, and they loved it, and it met all the needs that it needed to meet. And it was a good design and a great product. But it was kind of at that point when I realized like I had to take a deep breath and go like, okay, like I have to be hands off. If I stay too wound up in it, I'm not going to feel good about it, because we're only continuing to grow, expertise that can create these concepts, and they're going to be good, and they're going to be different than what I maybe have in mind whenever we start talking about what this product is. Right. And so, yeah.
So I'm 100% with you. It's fucking hard, but there is some good about it, I feel like now. Meaning, it's like we spend a lot of time now estimating projects and how long is this going to take and what will do this. And I dare a fucking designer to bullshit me on how long it's going to take to do something. Right? Because it's like, man, I can do it.
Confrontational.
No, it's just more just like, it's like the quality that we've learned from being able to do it and still doing it is we know what it takes. We know what the process is. We know how long it would take us. The problem isn't that we can't do it. It's just that we don't have time to do it now because we're doing all these other things that weren't on our plate before. Right. Right. And so I feel like what we've learned over all these years really helps kind of keep everything and everybody on the same page, because if someone was like to come to us and be like, well, it's going to take me at least 3 days to mock up this one screen. Right. And we'd be like, okay, so either you're bullshitting and you're trying to bill a bunch of hours, or you need help and you don't, and so Nami as a manager is going to like dive into that and be like, so why is it that you think it's going to take you 3 days? Like, is there a problem? Like, you need help? Like, you need like more direction? Like, right. Or are you just trying to make some Skrilla?
It's funny you mentioned that. And it sounds like maybe that's like contractors you've worked with that have said that, or.
Yeah. I mean, it's even to like mistakes I feel like I've made. Cause I've been like, when I had my contracting business, I'd be like very specific. And like, I spent 3.6 hours on making this mock. When I should have just been like 6. or something like that.
So that's what I was going to say. It's funny you mentioned that because I've had the problem where, like I talked about earlier, you get overly ambitious. I've seen this problem a lot. I think, the less experience you have, you see something, you're so excited about it, you're like, bang that shit out. Yeah, I'll have this done this week. And, which is like maybe possible. I mean, I don't know. What I'm saying is like, getting these estimates of like this certainty of like how long it's going to take. What I've learned is that typically if an individual can get it done in that period of time, it's not going to be as good as it should be, or they can't even get it done. And so what I see, so I've had the problem of people just being overly ambitious and saying like, yeah, this won't take that long. And so then I get into whereas you're talking about like from experience, you go, yeah, I think we're going to need a little bit more time than that. And so at least like I'm getting an idea from what you said, then in the estimate, I know enough to add some time. And then what's fun, and I only use this as like a learning experience, not like a shitting on experience, but it's like, if that individual that helped you estimate that said I can do it in a week or whatever, you're like, cool, so I have this done in a week. And when it comes around to like, fuck, I'm having trouble, like, yeah, that's good. I kind of thought you were being a little ambitious there. So how much longer do you think it'll take now? I don't actually tell them. I let them kind of reframe like, you know what? I think I need this much more time. And what's funny is sometimes you'll see them go like 1 more day. You're like, I think you need 3 more days. Why don't you give that you know what I mean? You start to learn totally. Like, okay, I got it. It's not that I'm living and breathing only this every day. Like I actually have to get up and take a shit.
So that's the piece, not the shit part, but how you're not actually living that I think is important to bring up, because especially now in like COVID days, like, we talked about getting in the zone when you're in the office.
Right.
Well, think about that now with a dog trying to go out to go pee, or your kids coming home, or, somebody comes back in, and like, there's just, when now we're working at home and it's just constant distraction, and so that thing that you could have knocked out in a day is now going to take you 3 days, not because you got worse at your job. It's because there's so much externally happening in your life, and it's so hard to get the work done now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a skill thing. It's a focus time management thing. Right? I don't know.
Which, depending on good for your team that they, report to you and you have that understanding. You work with some of these big consultancies and like, man, trying to explain that, I don't give a shit.
Yeah. They're just like, get it done.
You're like, okay, I guess I'm working after the kids go to bed.
Sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
Right.
As long as the check clears, it's fine.
I lost track of I feel like I had some ideas there, but I've lost
I'm
track.
sorry. I probably interrupted you and screwed your
brain.
Not
at all. We just went down the rabbit hole. What were we just talking about? I'm totally blanking right now.
Managers switching from being a designer to a manager.
You started talking about getting interrupted, and at the beginning of this show, I don't know if you saw me. I had to freaking type a message to my neighbor because their son was at the door ringing the doorbell. And, Essex is like, do I go down? Do I go open the door, or can I go play, or whatever he was doing? And I'm like trying to completely ignore it, which, So I'm sending her a message.
I was going to bring that up too, because my kids got home at the exact same time that was happening. And so I can hear them over there. And they know not to come in here if we're recording, but then you can still, like, they're kids, they're loud, and like these mics pick up everything. So
Well, I don't know if we can hear it, but it's hard not to, as the person like in your shoes or my shoes, when the kids are going, and you're just trying to ignore it. You're like, yes, Ray, I'm listening to you.
Yeah, totally. Paying full attention to you. Get out.
Well, man, we can start to wrap this, but so we've been getting some. What's funny is we've been getting feedback, but I've been getting like direct message feedback. So everyone loves the like white noise. I'm putting that in the description. We're the #1 podcast for white noise for designers.
Designer white noise. Yep.
Yeah. The other thing. Ken Hansen, who we talked about in our last episode, the growth hacker, he loved it. He wants to come on. We're going to get him on soon. So stay tuned. He is a charismatic guy, and I think it's going to be a fun episode. And I've learned a lot from him. I know I mentioned it in that episode, but he's a brilliant guy. So I'm excited to have him on. Third, I don't know what the third was, man.
Secret project.
That's what it was.
Next episode.
Mind. So yeah, I got some comments. You told me you did too, actually, about like, what the fuck are you guys working on? We want to build up some hype and tell us, you can't tell us what you're doing. So what are we working on, Ray?
Oh, we're going to talk about it right now?
Oh, I don't know. Are we not? Ooh, are we about to
I'm down to. No, I thought you were saying this is what we're going to talk about next time, but no, let's do it.
Well, let's give a little bit, because we've gotten a few too many comments asking like, we want to know what it is, which I love that we.
Did you see that? Did you see this?
Your amazing hair.
This cow.
Yeah, for the listeners, it basically looks seriously like a rooster, and it's not.
That's so good.
Yeah. So let's just give a little brief summary of. I don't think we have enough figured out, which is why the last episode we kind of said like we can't talk about it right now. But what are we doing?
Okay, so
you're kind of leading it right now, which is why I'm not like. I mean, I could give the.
I don't know if I'm leading it.
You're leading the hard work right now. You're doing the hard work right now.
Okay. So anyway, you're
doing the design part. I'm doing the management part.
So both me and Steve are definitely people that we learn by doing, right? And we've been very interested in the NFT space and cryptocurrency and all that kind of stuff, which, maybe we're late to the game. But for me, like I've definitely felt like I'm an idiot and I don't understand it.
We at least feel like we're later than we wish we were. Like
totally.
We've been aware, and I think we didn't understand enough. And then we went down some rabbit holes. We started talking about stuff. We couldn't stop thinking about stuff. We went down rabbit holes, and then we decided we wanted to get ourselves involved a little bit.
And so we're getting our hands dirty, and we're going to create an NFT project or collection. I'm not sure what the right terminology is.
I think both of those work.
And we're going to learn by doing. And it's kind of been our late night obsession. Like me and Steve are texting each other like 2 a.m, being like, "Oh, did you see this one? What's the price of that one?" And like it's like we're like stock traders, and we're looking at everybody's collection while we're building our own, which is the worst thing that you could possibly do.
Yeah.
Think of like designing a website, and then you just constantly have 1 million people sending you award-winning
the best
websites
you've ever
to
seen.
you, and you're just like, God, mine sucks. I should start over, and like so we've come up with a collection. We'll hopefully maybe show it to you guys in the next episode or something like that once we get everything done.
Ooh, but big commitment. We'll show it soon. Yeah.
Well, it's
actually what I like about the fact that we just brought it up is like, I mean, this is like, now I've blanked on the word I'm looking for, but we're committed now. Accountability.
Oh yeah.
We just went accountability like to the world. So, we've got some, stuff to figure out obviously, but, yeah. Well, one of the things that we're trying to figure out, and we're not going to go down the path of the whole like NFT rabbit hole, but we're going to figure out some things, some value that this collection of NFTs adds to the folks that buy them, and hopefully some of our listeners will be interested in whatever. We'll check it out. We'll see. We're going to try to do some cool stuff, and we're exploring and experimenting, and we're open to. Any questions about that kind of stuff. We're going to try not to go too NFT podcasty on anybody, but we did want to let you guys know that that's what we alluded to in the last episode, and what Ray's been staying up late working on.
Well, the other part of it too is like there's artwork involved, but there's also too this like utility type thing.
I guess I was kind of beating around the bush. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I just was going to go deeper with it, because I feel like if you know anything about NFTs, like the ones that have been successful, like they're done by people that are like great artists, or they have these connections or these partnerships or they're whatever. They give you access to things. And we were thinking, it's like me and Steve, like we're professional product builders. Like this is what we do, like for huge brands in the world, and like, how do we take what is access to like us, and
Our
the things
expertise.
that we do, and how
Yeah.
can we like help people and do things with it. And so that's been the part that we've been really trying to like rack our brain around. It's like, I don't want to give you like a sweatshirt, you know, like I want to give you,
I mean,
like,
I do
real
want to give you a
value.
sweatshirt, but like,
Yeah, I mean,
in
you can
addition
have one.
to some,
My point is, it's like, how do we do something that's creative and interesting to people that are in this space and that people want to be a part of? Like, this is like what we've learned is like, this is truly a community building process. It's less about the coin. It's less about the token. It's less about the artwork. It's more about like, how can you create a community and what is it that community gets value from? And like, that's what we've been really trying to like wrap our brain around of like, what can we give to people that we would give value to them? Cause it's like, I want to give somebody things, you know?
yep.
So,
All right. I think that's a good extended little teaser there, and we'll, you know, as we make progress, we'll share. So, hey man, anything else before we wrap?
meh.
Meh. All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. We've consistently been getting a lot of, you know, views on the videos, a lot of downloads on the podcast, and all thanks to you. As always, give us feedback. You can send us direct messages for feedback. We would love if you would write us some reviews. Hey, and until next time, deuces. I'm Stephen Ray.
Ray Hernandez. Later.
Fuck that up. All right. Later, y'all.
You totally did.